The phone rings in the middle of the night, spelling trouble for Warren Jeffs, the leader of Fundamentalist Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Gun in his hand, he looks out the window, panic strewn all over his face. He yells for the two women in his bed to get dressed and to get out of bed. He calls his wife, Janine, urgently telling her that they need to leave in 2 minutes. Warren gets into his car, only taking Katie, one of the women in his bed, with him. Janine wonders why he won't take her with him. After all, she is his first wife. He reminds her that she needs to take care of things at home while he's away. He touches her face and tells her to keep sweet for the Lord before driving away. The sound of police sirens gets louder, and a group of police cars is headed towards Warren's home. Without them realizing it, Warren's truck passes by in the opposite direction. The cops miss him, and Warren successfully escapes. Before the chaotic police raid, Warren's life was quite peaceful. On the border of Arizona and Utah rests Short Creek, comprising of the towns of Hilldale and Colorado City. It's a scenic view with plentiful fields and nature. Women in light-colored prairie dresses with braided hair can be seen doing chores and housework. Men do manual labor, children play outside, and Warren and Janine play a gospel song in front of a large crowd. This is the home of the Fundamentalist Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, or FLDS. Just another day in their community. At the time, Warren's not the leader yet. The role belongs to his father, Rulon Jeffs. He visits him while the man is having a solemn conversation with another member of the congregation. However, when Warren asks him if everything is okay, Rulon snaps that if he needed Warren, he would have called him. Better that he entertained the guests with his little guitar. A woman then interrupts the two, explaining that it's time for the cake cutting. A wedding cake cutting commences between Rulon and another woman. The ceremony taking place is Rulon's own wedding to his 56th wife. After the ceremony, Warren locks himself in a bathroom and stares into the mirror. He looks distressed and begins hitting himself. His strained relationship with his father has him terribly frustrated, but he composes himself, and everything returns to how it should be. Sometime later, Warren is seen in a classroom, teaching a group of girls. He asks them what the highest honor for a woman is, and when Alyssa's called to answer, she says, to be a mother. Her peers make fun of her answer since she doesn't have a father, so Uncle Warren promptly tells the class to watch their tongue before making them write a 3-page essay on treating each other kinder. After dismissal, Alyssa stays behind, as Warren asks, how long have the others been bullying her? It's been a while. Her father ran off, and she feels alienated from his family. It's like she isn't a part of it. Warren comforts her, saying that he had 25 siblings when he was her age, and it took him a long while to figure out his place in the world. But if those kids give her trouble again, she should tell him. That aside, he warns her to mind the company she keeps, as he notices a young boy waiting for her by the exit. The next day, Warren meets with his father, who declares that the end is near, as he had another dream about a police raid. Rulon explains that the people outside the FLDS community hate them. They think they're just freaks and perverts. Warren questions his father, as this isn't the first time this has happened, deeply affronting the man. Rulon threatens him, insinuating that he's a non-believer, so Warren backs down. Again, he insists that the day of reckoning is coming. They need to gather everyone soon. However, during the night of the reckoning, nothing happened. Disappointed and embarrassed, Rulon feels unwell and leaves Warren to deal with the rest of the community. Everyone's disappointed, but Warren takes the lead and explains that the Lord has spoken and told his father that he has granted them a reprieve in order to prepare them for his next coming. The people seem doubtful of this, to which Warren reprimands them for questioning the word of God. He explains that the end is almost near, and only real believers would be welcome into heaven. He feels honored to be one of the chosen, and everyone else should feel the same way. Soon after, Rulon's health sharply declines. Weakly, he tells Warren to see Noah Fielding. Rulon reveals that Noah will be the next prophet when he passes, leaving his son shocked and confused. He seeks an audience with the priesthood council, and while it appears that they don't know anything about Noah Fielding, they already anticipated Rulon's passing and have made plans. Seeing Warren grow agitated, they assure him that they were just being practical since Rulon's in his 90s already. But Warren doesn't buy that since they've done this behind the prophet and his family's backs. After exiting the council room, Warren finds Alyssa waiting for him. He notices that she's incredibly upset and bruised. It was her step-cousin Alan who did it. The poor girl says he's always been mean to her and she doesn't know why. So Warren firmly explains that it's because she's different. She's quiet, she draws, and she thinks, but she has suffered enough. And Warren says he'll make sure that Alan will never lay a finger on her again. Suddenly Warren gets a call, and as if she knew what happened, Alyssa asks if he's going to be the next prophet. Warren's resentment towards his father only doubled. He thought he would be the next prophet. After all, was it not his birthright? And to make matters worse, the council has been planning and making decisions about the community's future behind his and his father's back. It's becoming clearer to Warren that he's part of neither Rulon's plans nor the council's. Perhaps they all look down on him, see a lack of ambition in him. During his wedding, Rulon just dismissed him when he tried to involve himself and told him to go play the guitar. Or perhaps it's because Warren thinks, though his father is their prophet, he still questions him. That may be why he said those things to Alyssa. He could be seeing himself in her. Either way, Warren may still hold the cards here. The council is unaware of Rulon's decision regarding Noah, so he could use this to his advantage. After all, no one will know if he keeps Noah a secret. As for the end, Rulon keeps going on about, it could simply be paranoia at work. Rulon passes, and a large funeral is held for him. Everyone in the community mourns Rulon's passing, except his own son. Sure, Warren has the mind to look somber, but he's already setting his plan in motion. He doesn't honor his father's final request, and instead, he proclaims himself as the next prophet. I will be the voice of God on earth. Anyone who won't hear it, I will cast them out, he murmurs, while icily staring at his reflection. During the gathering for Rulon's funeral, a man in a suit follows them. No one knows who this man is, but one thing's for sure. He isn't a member of their community, and he is certainly not welcome. When it's time for Warren to address the community, he solemnly claims that as his father lay dying, he asked Warren to promise to protect the people of Short Creek, save them from the apostates, for they will come there to take their children and destroy everything they've built. That's why they're sending their spies. With conviction, he promises to be the prophet they deserve, which garners mixed reaction. Many weep in joy, while some are clearly against Warren's takeover. After the funeral, Warren drives to a house in Hilldale, where a little girl opens the door. Her father took one of her moms to the dentist, so Warren waits for his return. He eventually comes home, and the man turns out to be Noah Fielding himself. Noah is caught off guard by Warren's sudden visit, but is welcoming nonetheless. Warren, however, does not reciprocate this warmth. He claims that the Lord has revealed Noah's sins to Rulon. He is no longer welcome in the community, and he has 48 hours to get out. Amidst Noah's confusion, one of his wives call out to him, and they all find their family pictures ruined. Noah is blacked out in all of them. One day, Warren spies on Alyssa and catches her kissing a young man. Spite fills him, and from there, he goes to Alyssa's house, where he tells her and her stone-faced mother, Sharon Wall, that she's now ready to be married off, as Alyssa has already started her period. The poor girl is devastated. She locks herself in the bathroom and begs her mother not to go through with this, but she is eventually dragged out. The distraught Alyssa is brought to a motel, where she's forced to marry her cousin, Alan Steed, the same man who was beating her, and the very man Warren swore to protect her from. Later, Warren urges his wife Janine to teach the younger women the way. Janine is hesitant, clearly uncomfortable with the request, but she knows that she can't refuse. The next day, Janine inspects a lineup of women, who are meant to be Warren's next wives. They're all eager save for Rebecca, the blonde woman from earlier. Rebecca is wholeheartedly against this marriage with Warren, as she was one of Rulon's wives. It's against her faith, and it's a huge sin for Warren to covet his father's wife. Unfortunately, Janine just slaps her, and tells the other women to leave them. Alone, Rebecca tries to appeal to Janine. As Warren's first wife, she couldn't possibly want their marriage either. A helpless Janine can only answer that it's not their job to want anything. As wives, all they are meant to do is obey. It is not their job to decide their fate. Warren then meets with all of his new wives. They are holding flowers and dressed in their best dresses for their little wedding ceremony. The women are thrilled to marry the prophet, but he notices that Rebecca's upset. When asked what's wrong, Rebecca refuses to marry him and begs Warren to reconsider. Suddenly, something inside the prophet snaps. To be refused like this, much less by a woman. He cruelly notes that she's had far too much freedom. Rebecca must learn to be an obedient wife. He proceeds to hurt Janine in front of all of them, showing them what their fate would be if they don't follow every word he says. Once more, he asks Rebecca to be his wife, and though the terrified woman nearly falters, she stands her ground and refuses. This leads to the woman being taken away and locked up in her room, while Warren exits, leaving a traumatized Janine on the floor to pick herself back up. Sometime after, Warren takes the young man who was with Alyssa and drives him out to a large field, far away from the compound. He shares that when he was 12, he caught his brother stealing from their father's dresser. He reported it to Rulon, but the man punished him for snitching and lacking loyalty to his family. Warren was forced to walk 30 miles in the desert, and in his exposure to the outside world, he saw all manners of horrible things. People of color, men who love other men, and fallen women. Warren was disgusted. Suddenly, he stops the car in the middle of nowhere and tells the young man to get out. He's confused, but Warren just lets him know that he is no longer part of the community. Surprisingly, the young man doesn't try to fight, and gets out of the car without protest. Later on, Warren sees the same man who was watching them during the funeral. He tries talking to the man, but he rolls his car windows up, making it clear he dislikes Warren. Upset, Warren yells at him, insisting that he's the one who is lost. He has no right to judge him. The man merely drives off and sits alone in a diner, where he is clearly unwelcomed. But when he returns to his motel, he notices that his room has been broken into. He takes out his gun and investigates. Though his room is in complete disarray, it appears that nothing was taken. Back at the compound, Warren goes to see Rebecca to once more change her mind, but she only begs to be left alone. Infuriated, he tries to force himself on her, but Rebecca keeps fighting back, forcing him to relent. A spiteful Warren threatens to break her and teach her to be an obedient wife before leaving her room. Janine quickly checks on Rebecca after the altercation and warns her that she needs to stop fighting, but when she remains steadfast in her beliefs, Janine acknowledges that she can't change her mind. Unexpectedly, she decides to help Rebecca escape, and when she asks her to go with her, Janine declines. Warren soon wakes up in the middle of the night and notices that Rebecca's room is empty. He demands to know who let her out. He rushes to his car and looks for her, but Rebecca is gone. She has finally escaped. For the first time in her life, she can get a taste of freedom and live her life in her own terms. In the end, Warren is little more than a monster that's fueled by his entitlement. Believing himself to be the rightful prophet, he drives out Noah through underhanded means. Despite presenting himself as Alyssa's protector, he damned her straight to hell with her own personal devil the moment she did something he didn't approve of. When one woman refused him, he cruelly hurt his own wife to make an example for the others. Warren is neither a savior nor a steward. He's a man playing God, claiming dominion over his land and everything within it, merely for the sake of ownership. Janine seems to recognize how trapped she and the other wives are. She herself has never had the bravery to stand up to Warren, even when he was mistreating her. It's hard for battered spouses and other mistreated people to escape from their situation, especially when it's all they've ever known. The women of FLDS are raised to be subservient, to be nothing but objects for the men to use and command. They also have nothing to their names, so when Rebecca left, the only thing she had was freedom. Janine and the other women are not safe, neither in the outside world nor within the community. They don't have the luxury of a better choice, only the choice they will die by. One time, Alan visits Warren, asking for his advice because his wife Alyssa refuses to fulfill her wifely duties. Warren slaps Alan, letting him know that as a man, he needs to be forceful, so he doesn't need her permission to do whatever he wants. The man takes it to heart, and after betting his step-cousin, Alyssa is crying and visibly traumatized. She stares out the window, longing to escape, and flinching whenever her husband tries to touch her. But despite the harrowing experience, Alyssa is forced to thank her husband for, quote, making her a woman. In a small container van by the side of the road, the unknown man from the funeral sets up his things. The man turns out to be Detective Gary Engels, an officer who is dead set on taking down Warren Jeffs and the FLDS church. Based on his investigation, he found out that some of the members of the community have issues with Warren's controlling nature and near dictatorship. He is confident that Warren is unstable and will eventually mess up. All they need to do was wait. Warren can manage his own downfall. Engels soon meets with Rebecca, and though she looks a mess, she's safe and free. She reports everything that happened to her. Eager to help, Detective Engels questions if she is sure about going through with this, as the members of the FLDS community will surely come for her, discredit her, and smear her name. Rebecca is sure about her decision. She needs to help him take down Warren in order to help her younger sister, Alyssa, who she left behind. Detective Engels asks if Alyssa's married, to which Rebecca confesses that Warren forced her into marriage with her cousin Alan at just 14 years old. As disturbing as this revelation is, this could just be what they need to take down Warren. It doesn't take long before Warren is shown the TV interview with Detective Engels, where he claims that Warren is using the higher being as an excuse to take advantage of young ladies. Claiming it's all lies, Warren breaks the TV before calling for another meeting. He tells his followers that God revealed to him a conspiracy where they are being branded as criminals for performing celestial marriages and so-called young marriages. Warren declares that they're privileged to live and pray on their hallowed ground, even though the whole wicked world wants to destroy them. As such, God has delivered to him a new set of laws for their protection. The color red was banned, as it is the devil's color. All sports are no longer allowed in the compound, as people should use this time to pray. All media, except radios, are no longer allowed. This includes computers, the internet, TV, newspapers, and even books. Music and dancing are no longer allowed within the community, except for approved religious hymns. Finally, dogs needed to be expunged from the community, as they are direct descendants of the wolves, the devil's mascot. All the dogs are taken from their families by a firing squad to be mercilessly disposed of. Warren assures his followers that it is all out of love, and he is just following the Lord's word. However, a few seeds of doubt start to plant themselves in some of the members of the community, particularly the members of the priesthood council. In any case, it's time for him to take a new bride because God told him so, and he takes another bride who's still in her youth. Eventually, Warren is served a subpoena, and the council warns him that this is a serious matter. They say that it's because he keeps marrying off mere girls. Warren, however, seems unfazed by all of this. During the next congregation, Warren calls out all the members of his council. Without warning, he excommunicates them, immediately divorcing them from their wives. As for their children, they'll be placed in the hands of more faithful men. He brands them all as unfaithful men, and he asks the others to pray that they may one day be able to return to their families. Meanwhile, Alyssa is cleaning her home when she suddenly starts bleeding profusely. She falls over in pain, lying in a pool of her own blood. It turns out that she had a miscarriage. Warren visits and tries to comfort her, insisting that this was all part of God's plan. He asks Alyssa to believe in him and not end up like her sister. Terrified, she can only say that she does when in reality, she's reached her breaking point. Once she can, she goes into a lake, toying with the idea of drowning herself and ending her suffering. However, Alyssa decides against it, and the last minute, she takes the keys to a car and drives away. Finally, after much pain and torment, Alyssa is now free. She's soon reunited with Rebecca, and they talk to Engels in a diner. The detective clarifies the events that happened to her and asks Alyssa to testify in court. Alyssa is terrified and unsure if she can do it, but Detective Engels manages to persuade her by bringing up all of the other girls she could save with her testimony. With this, they finally have what they need to take down Warren. In the beginning, Alyssa answered that her highest purpose as a woman was to be a mother. Perhaps that's why her miscarriage brought her to her breaking point, and she was at the crossroads of ending her life, or ending the chapter of her life that made her suffer so. It's rather interesting that both she and her sister were the ones capable of seeing past the veil that shrouded their women's eyes. And they're the ones with the courage to resist and escape. What makes these two sisters so different? How were they able to do what others, like Janine, couldn't? One thing to consider is Alyssa's relationship with her father. The man was said to have run off, but based on Warren's actions, he banishes men who threaten him and don't share his ideals. His father must have been the same, seeing as he antagonized Warren for questioning him, and even punished him for reporting his brother's misdeeds. It's possible that Alyssa's father escaped as his views didn't align with their community, and he wanted freedom. It's even possible that he was excommunicated, as that is a common consequence for the men in the community who don't comply. This is speculation, but it could be that the source of the sisters' inner strength and will to fight comes from their father having found his. This is further seen when Alyssa steals, presumably her husband's car, and drives off. In a community where women aren't given the same education as men, and where women are expected to be docile and obedient homemakers, where did Alyssa learn how to drive? Her husband would definitely not have taught her, nor would Warren or the other men in her current life. Rebecca also seemed to escape rather easily. Despite her attire, she was easily able to throw her luggage over the fence and climb over. Perhaps their father knew what would be in store for them, and taught them skills they'd need in order to free themselves one day. Or they were simply capable. In any case, Rebecca and Alyssa had nothing but their will, and it saw them through the end of their torment. Finally, it's the night of the raid. The call Warren receives is from Sheriff Brady, warning him that the police were coming. He has about 5 minutes max to escape. Warren flees with his driver and his wife, Katie. Police forces arrive at Warren's home, but he is no longer there. An all-out manhunt ensues for Warren Jeffs, making him one of the country's most notorious fugitives. Alas, despite being on the run, he continues to live comfortably, getting massages and taking pictures with Katie in their new clothes. He also continues to record his sermons while on the road for his followers back at the compound. Through the help of other FLDS members across the country, he's able to keep escaping the authorities while getting the money and supplies he needs. Warren is added to the FBI's 10 most wanted list, with a $100,000 reward for anyone who can provide information that will lead to his arrest. However, this doesn't seem to faze Warren. He's thrilled by the prospect of being bigger than OBL himself, who's also among the 10 most wanted. Hiding in plain sight, Warren is shopping for guns and other supplies with one of his followers. When he learns that Alyssa is going to testify against him, he is reminded of the proof of Alyssa's marriage and that it would be all over for him if she testifies. Emboldened by bitterness and betrayal, he decides that Alyssa has chosen the path to perdition, and that blood atonement is the only way to absolve her of her sins. In the car ride to their next stop, Warren allows them to stop by a gas station to get food. Katie wonders if he's afraid of getting caught, to which Warren responds with, "Why would I be afraid? God is never going to let that happen." However, despite Warren's arrogance, Detective Engels gets a new lead. Warren has been spotted heading to El Dorado, Texas. Detective Engels alerts the Texan authorities to be on the lookout. Later that night, Warren's driving to their next stop when they are pulled over by state police. The state officer reprimands them for a minor traffic violation and asks for the driver's license and registration. Upon inspection, he notices that the vehicle doesn't belong to the driver. The driver reasons with the officer, explaining that the car belonged to his boss. The officer inspects the other passengers of the car and asks Warren for his name, to which Warren coldly responds that it doesn't matter. The officer starts to suspect something's off. Something about Warren makes him nervous. He calls for backup, and upon noticing that the driver is armed, he immediately raises his gun at him, yelling at him to get out of the car. Backup quickly arrives. Warren continues to eat his gas station salad as if nothing's wrong. The officer asks Warren once more for his name, but he just chews slower in response. Eventually, though, he yields and reveals that his name is Warren Steed Jeffs. Finally, in police custody, Warren is interrogated by Detective Engels. He argues that the detective is wrong about him and that he cannot be contained because God cannot be contained. And as the prophet, he's basically God. Detective Engels retorts that God would never harm a child and that deep down, Warren knows this, just like he knows he's going to hell. It's finally the day of Alyssa's testimony. Reporters gather around the girl, bombarding her with questions about her life at the compound and the life of the other women there. Warren arrives soon after and is also hounded by reporters. From a distance, Janine watches him, distraught. Alyssa takes the stand with Warren staring her down, and she immediately breaks down into tears. The jury rules Warren guilty, and he is immediately locked up, sentenced to life in prison. Detective Engels is celebrated for his accomplishments, but they all know there is still a lot to be done. Upon his arrival in prison, the other inmates heckle and threaten him. For the first time, the deluded man gets shaken up as the reality finally dawns on him. Warren breaks down, realizing that he is powerless, and it's his own hubris that placed him there. Warren receives a visit from his brother, Isaac, along with some of his wives. Warren now has his head shaved and looks completely beaten down, defeated. After asking the wives to leave, he tells Isaac to write his statement down. Warren bids farewell to his followers and that he will no longer be around because he is unworthy. He confesses that he is not the prophet and that he never was. He hangs up the phone before going back to his cell. In his cell, Warren attempts to end his own life. However, another inmate notices and alerts the guards. Back at the compound, Isaac relays Warren's message to the rest of the followers. Everyone looks hopeless, but Alyssa's own mother, Shannon, speaks up and tells them that they're just trying to kill Warren. All of this is just a plot to bring him down. Despite everything Warren's put her through, Janine implores everyone to pray for his strength, as she still believes that he's their one true prophet. Isaac returns to visit Warren in prison, where he asks him if they passed the test. He and the other congregation members know that it was all a test, that Warren was testing their faith, and that the only reason Warren was imprisoned was because they were unworthy followers, basically denying all of Warren's crimes. Through this, Warren realizes that his control remains strong, and his followers remain devout, regardless of what happens. Through this blind and unwarranted loyalty, Warren can continue being the prophet, even behind bars. With a newfound purpose and confidence, he congratulates Isaac on passing his first test. Now, he is going to instruct them on what they need to do to continue being worthy. On August 9th, 2011, Warren was convicted on 2 counts of taking advantage of girls who aren't of age. This is not a fictional case. Warren Jeffs is a real person, and he was truly a part of the FBI's most wanted list. The extent of his power extended beyond religion. He controlled almost all of the land in Short Creek. This was part of a church trust called the United Effort Plan, or the UEP. The land was estimated to be worth over $100 million. He also controlled much of the local government and its officers, who happened to be devout FLDS members. Most cults operate with one person in charge, fully taking advantage of their power over their followers, and Warren's greed took this to a whole new level. The FLDS Church is a strict sect of Mormonism that practices polygamy, as they believe that having at least 3 wives brings a man closer to God. The events of the movie are all inspired by the book When Men Become God by Stephen Singular, as well as true experiences of Alyssa and Rebecca Wall. Unfortunately, the Wall sisters were not the only victims, as thousands of former FLDS members have since come forward with their own experiences. The FLDS community still lives on to this day. Thousands of members still worship Warren as their prophet, continuing his practices and way of life. Warren continues to lead his followers behind bars. Most of the FLDS members still reside in Short Creek. However, as of the mid-2010s, the area is slowly moving away from the FLDS way of life. Hilldale elected its first female non-FLDS mayor in 2017. Soon after, this was followed by a change in police force, as the previous one was found guilty of discrimination. A new police force with no affiliation to Warren was elected. They even opened up their first brewery in 2018. Though these changes are small, they're steps in the right direction. And hopefully one day, everyone who was harmed will find the peace and justice they deserve, and that everyone can be free from a megalomaniac playing God.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this, turn on notifications and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.